We're about to make history right now. The first ever opposing force remake gameplay reveal. I missed.
On August 18th, 2024, the first asset for FUBAR, the shock roach, was implemented as a way for me to utilize some of the assets I had made over the previous few years. In doing so, I had planted the seeds that would grow and become FUBAR, which at the time was actually its conceptual name that ended up being what we stuck with. With some help from some temp assets from friends and other projects, and some of the worst mapping by me imaginable, this humble little project began drawing the attention of many of my talented peers who very quickly made this blossom. A whole year later now, this project has matured into a fully fledged, ambitious project far greater than I could have ever imagined. My team is filled with incredible, multi-talented people who motivate me so strongly every day, and you, the fans and followers of this project, have been an incredible support throughout the development. So, here we are, our 1-year anniversary, and we have lots to show. Let's start with some explosives. The Mark II grenade is now in-game, thanks to the efforts of Cult. This model was something I started as a little practice on hard surface, but when it got a little tricky for someone as organics-minded as me, Cult stepped in and brought this thing to the finish line.
The grenade was a pleasant surprise to be assigned to. As Amicus had already made about half the model, it was up to me to finish it and do the rest. While making the texture, I had a specific goal in mind, making it look authentic and believable in a way that you would expect from a Mark II grenade you'd find in a surplus crate. I paid special attention to the gloss, pulling from photo references online to make the grenade look not like something that just came straight from the factory, but also not something that's been rotting for 20 years and might go off any second if you don't pet it kindly enough.
Nuji, one of our 3D artists, has created a wonderful and faithful model of the suit battery from Half-Life 1, replacing the combined batteries we were using in its place. This familiar glowing battery is easy to spot and a welcome addition to our growing collection of props. Nuji says, "While remaking this iconic model, I tried to stay as close as possible to the original reference, while also modernizing it with a few added details here and there. I also brought in some design elements from the Black Mesa battery model to create a blend of the best of both worlds. I hope you like it." Q, as well as being a fantastic mapper, quickly proved themselves to be a very capable and versatile hard surface modeler. Since joining, they have taken it upon themselves to create massive sets of props for our level designers to use throughout their levels, replacing many of the placeholder assets we had. Of recent are the wooden crates.
Fairly early on, before we had a dedicated 3D hard surface artist, I spent some time playing around with Blender to get a feel for it, replacing some simple but common assets from Half-Life 2 and Black Mesa with our own versions, such as the modular pipes and railings. Eventually, I turned my attention to the wooden crates, wanting to find a way to make them distinct from Black Mesa's. As I looked over screenshots from Half-Life 1 and Opposing Force for ideas, one fairly common element caught my eye: the metal trim used on many of the crate textures. It's a small detail in the big picture, but I think the end result strikes a nice balance between being recognizably Half-Life while having an identity of its own. With the meshes done, I passed them over to Lieutenant Rocky for jibbing.
With crates comes the inevitable destruction of said crates. A niche role we have filled on the team has been that we have a developer, Lieutenant Rocky, that specializes in destruction and technical animation. He has not only created these wonderful gibs for our crates, but has taken an extra step to create a staged destruction for them. Andrew has been experimenting with Zen flora, and the first wave of organics props is in: Zen mushrooms. Weird and very much alien, these shrooms will be peppered across Zen and Zen overgrowth as an important part of our world building. He says, "I've always had a bit of a soft spot for the Zen spore, so when Amy mentioned that Zen flora and fauna were up for grabs, I thought it would be a fun little one-day project. I based the model mostly on the version from Half-Life Alyx, since it was the best official reference I had. Texturing ended up being my favorite part of the process. I wanted it to look gross to the touch, so I really focused on varying the roughness. The contrast makes certain areas look shiny, like the surface is wet. I feel it looks sweaty or clammy, which is perfect because I can't think of anything I'd want to touch less than a sweaty fungus." You've seen these creature models before, but now they have been fully animated by the good chap, with lots of dynamic movements and layered animations.
The bull squid was a challenging but fun creature to bring to life. Given his big and hulky design, the idea was to give lots of weight to each of his animations to emphasize the strength of the creature. I ended up using crocodiles as a reference for some of his animations, specifically seen on the walk, as he's moving slow and almost cautiously, like he's on the lookout for his prey. The tentacles were a big concern for me given the amount of bones and lack of IK controls on my end. However, creating layered animations for the tentacles was quite a game changer for a lot of these animations, as I could create an animation specific to the tentacles, and use it as a layer for already existing animations. This not only saves time, but each animation still feels different and unique. The Pitron, on the other hand, is a different story. The Pitron was the first creature I animated for FUBAR, which was a joy as it's my favourite Half-Life creature. Considering it is a lot smaller than the other creatures, I wanted to make it rabid and a little silly in its movements to differentiate it from the other creatures better. I find its fins and tail add a lot to the character of the Pitron, so to emphasize on this, I wanted to make the fins more noticeable in each action. I find it's best shown with the reload as the fins tense up during the reload, which helps sell the idea that the Pitron is in pain while reloading, then is relieved when the reloading is complete as the fins loosen up.
With every new weapon we add to our arsenal, GoRibby never fails to create a wonderful set of view model animations, and the Glock has received its near-complete set. GoRibby says, "The Glock marks the first firearm and first two-handed weapon I've animated for FUBAR. It needed to be fast but still feel powerful given it'll be the first firearm the player will get, and probably the one they'll use the most until getting a better one. I always try to draw inspiration from other media for my animations. For the Glock, some of these include John Wick, as seen in the Inspect, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019, real-life reference footage, and of course whatever my mind comes up with. The draw animation was also recycled and tweaked a bit from a joke animation I did using an interesting sound effect by Jane." You may notice the arms look a bit different from our last showcase. Halfway through animating the Glock, we started discussing a possible redesign for the arms, which would be modeled by Andrew. With this, I had to stop working on the Glock, wait for the new models and rig them, retarget all the previous animations for the previous weapons, the wrench and the knife, and go back to the Glock. This means half of the animations were made using the old arms, then retargeted. In the end, I think it turned out great. There's always things to improve and tweak as the game evolves, so this is not the final look just yet, but I'd say it's pretty close. We're continuing to push forward with mapping, and that includes major work on the transit hub. Jane has created something truly special with this reinterpretation and expansion of the original layout.
Located on the precipice of Sector E's Biodome complex, the transit hub serves as a major location you'll be visiting in the second chapter of FUBAR, We Are Pulling Out. Pre-disaster, this location served as the heart of Sector E's vast network of transit lines, providing multiple platforms with direct access to the surface, and serving as a logistics hub for the air traffic control facilities and the Black Mesa airport, located directly above on the surface. Now, with the military pulling out and the facility on the verge of collapse, Adrian will have to fight his way through the now ruined, alien-infested halls of the transit hub in order to reach the surface above. There will be no man left behind as you and your comrades make your push to the surface. This level features an almost entirely new layout compared to its relatively small counterpart in the original game, containing a whole host of new locations for you to explore, which help to cement this as a much larger location, rather than being a small set of hallways as it was originally. Everything from offices, zombie-infested server rooms, waiting areas, with plenty of optional areas along the way. In doing this, I analyzed key details from its appearance in the original game, be it lighting and atmosphere, texture choice, geometry, and so much more. When reimagining areas, taking note of these are crucial, both as a point of reference and to help better anchor our levels to those in the original game. Getting to create these levels has given me a tremendous appreciation for the level design in the original game, and I know that I'm not alone in saying that.
NASC has done some incredible work on OF1A4, a map we have dubbed Overflow. staying very true to many elements of the shared locations of the map in Half-Life, while adding lots of gameplay within the walls between the major spaces. Nask says, "When I started on Overflow, I had a few core principles, one of which was expanding underused areas. Original Overflow is a tiny, single room with a few headcrabs that leads to a large empty area from Half-Life 1's tram intro. Essentially, it is nothing but a short sightseeing tour with barely any gameplay. To that end, the tram area itself was reimagined quite heavily, while still retaining the original layout beneath it all. The shipping and materials handling aspect was pumped up, appearing much busier and having a larger purpose for the facility than the original design might have implied. I have added a completely new gameplay route that takes advantage of the chasm between the platforms, having players navigate maintenance walkways, pipes, and using much more of the area for gameplay purposes. Elevation, our version of OF2A2, has also seen lots of work and is now in gameplay testing, marking our first rounds of playtesting for the project.
In the original, this level serves as the introduction to the first Race X enemies that the player fights against, the pit drones. Many areas in this level, as with the rest of the game, are given more purpose to feel like places that were actually worked in, which includes the vehicle repair shop and the halls leading to the elevator. Gameplay sequences have received a revamp while simultaneously honoring and staying true to the original game, with more opportunities to utilize traps that the player acquires for the first time. This section leans on the atmosphere and lighting in its gameplay to make fighting the pit drones more engaging and interesting in each ambush.
Kate has pivoted to Transit, the equivalent of OF1A5. The map presents some unique challenges with creating a level that is a bit of a rail shooter while making the surroundings engaging and interesting.
Transit has been a very unique map to work on, in terms of both the content and workflow. We've got a lot of new elements we want to include in the finished sequence, which has required a very different approach to its development. For instance, there's a lot of new dialogue to be added. Because of this, we now need the total length of the tram ride to match up with the length of the dialogue. This has led to the very interesting scenario where we have to work on both narrative and gameplay elements together, because they're so much more dependent on each other. In order to not have this block production of the blockout, I decided to focus on creating a large number of disconnected sections that could quickly be arranged into a fully laid out level when the time came. It's actually proved to be an extremely useful workflow, as I could quickly iterate upon areas without needing to worry about connecting them into the larger level as I go. It's been really fun to plan out this map so far. It's got a lot of space for interesting new areas and details, and I'm super excited for when we finally get to show the full thing off to everyone.
To improve the artistic vision of our outdoor scenes, we've started incorporating real-life photography of desert landscapes. Eric, or GameBoy555, our graphical designer and photographer, has traveled out to multiple desert regions of the US to gather lots of photos and videos for the team to use in textures and material reference.
We needed decals that reflected our own identity. Taking inspiration from Black Mesa, I added our own spin, plus some humor, to the various assets you'll see in FUBAR. And then photography. Much like Karen Lauer, the texture artist for Half-Life 1, I ventured out to Utah and Nevada to take reference and texture photos for our project. I visited the Hoover Dam, arguably one of the main inspirations for the dam seen in the surface tension chapter of Half-Life. I also had a rare encounter with an endangered species, a California condor with only 500 left in existence. I traveled through Zion National Park, scaled several mountains, hiked through the Narrows, and continued to Bryce Canyon, Capitol Reef, and the Valley of Fire to capture various texture photos. I also recorded all my hikes, as seen with the following body cam footage. The purpose of this is to help out the level designers by providing them with an idea of how some of these environments are shaped, as opposed to a static image. I also do this to look back and admire the memories I had there, as I have a huge passion for hiking and a love for the outdoors. Please enjoy and admire some of the footage I contributed for this update. As seen in my body cam footage from these adventures, I was able to take over 500 texture photos for our level designers and 2D artists to use freely. Jane Thrace has already begun incorporating some of these assets into her work. My love and passion for photography will continue to shape future assets seen later in the game, so be on the lookout.
That brings us to the end of the anniversary update. But don't go yet, because we are always looking to fill a few very essential roles within the team. Clothing modeler. We are in need of a 3D artist that specializes in clothing, military uniforms, science team clothes, and any other clothing for our human characters is something we very much need. Vehicle modeler. FUBAR will feature quite a lot of military vehicles, and we need someone who is capable of creating high-quality vehicles and aircraft. General hard surface artist. We are always in need of hard surface artists. Anything from lab equipment to simple crates, we need all the help we can get. If you fit any of these positions or have another skill you think you can contribute to the team, submit your response to the form in the description. If you are not already part of our Discord, the link is in the description along with our socials to keep up with development. And happy birthday, FUBAR!